Hey Daniel, welcome to When Spirit Talks. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I just wanted
Oh,
to see
did
if what you do if I thought I was frozen.
oh my God. That was crazy.
Thank you for having me, Stephanie.
I loved it. That was funny. That was really funny. I needed that. Crazy day made me laugh. I'm like, what is going on? I know we checked all the mics before, but anyway, love it. So funny.
That's great.
So now that I can hear you and I know you can hear me, I want to know about your journey and how you became known as the past life regressionist.
So I guess the best place to start would probably be childhood, that I always had a curiosity for the world around me, but I was also very stuck in my ways. And I guess you could say I was a product of the system and I needed proof. Something would not be true unless there was proof. It's fun to think about it, but if science couldn't validate it, then no, I'm not going to
Mhm.
give it any time beyond, oh, maybe, whatever. Yeah. Let's talk about where water freezes, or how clouds form.
So even as a young kid.
Yeah. I was
Wow, okay.
very rigid. And as I got older, that that stubborn, rigid nature still stuck with me. And I got sick in my early 20s. And that kind of carried through my 20s. And I hit this point where Western medicine just wasn't cutting it for me. So I said, you know what? I think I have to go outside of what's measurably tested. And this beloved system that I've put all my faith in, I think I have to look outside. So I started to explore alternative treatments and nothing was really working. But as I really decided to open myself up, it's like things started to fall into my lap. And I later found that terminology to be synchronicity. And I happened to find out about past life regression. And I was just fascinated by the premise of it and thinking how cool it would be to actually revisit a past life through hypnosis. So I sat on it for a while. I tried it a few months after that, and it absolutely changed my life. And I don't like to use the word absolutely because I don't
Hmm.
like absolute statements, but it absolutely changed my life, but not in the way that I thought. I went in there hoping to be healed because what I had heard through the research that I'd done was that it had the ability to heal. And yes, while I have seen that in my practice, I have seen people have turnarounds. It didn't happen for me. But I think that would have been too easy and too simple.
Hmm.
But what it did for me was it shifted my perspective on life because I still wasn't fully ready to let go of my belief system. Yes, I'd been pushed to this place where, okay, I have to try other things that aren't Western medicine. But I was so moved by the experience that I let go to that feeling that it has to be one way. And something that I learned a little later from my astrology teacher, his name is Jim Scher. He taught me the difference between believing and knowing. Now, I didn't actively have that terminology at the time or just that complex. I'm sorry, that that concept just laid out in a simple sentence. But that's kind of the way I was operating at the time, being so profoundly moved by this process where I didn't know that it was real, but I believed that it was real. And I believed in past lives after my first experience. So therefore, I believed in future lives by default. So I
Hmm.
walked out of that first session saying, okay, next time it could be better or it could be worse. These are the cards that I've been dealt this time. So how am I going to play them? So I no longer felt like a victim of my circumstances and I wanted to make the most out of my life. And the irony of that is you'd think that having a belief in only one life would be the way where you'd be like, okay, I want to make the most out of this one life. Whereas
Hmm.
having a belief in many, it's like, okay, I'll just get it next time. But it was the opposite for me, where it's like, no, I want to make the most out of this one. I don't want to wait for the next one. So just that shift in perspective really changed things for me. And I just did not see myself as a sick person anymore. I still had to deal with whatever I was dealing with, but I just didn't look at it the same way. And that kind of opened up my world to just a new outlook. And I started to see things differently. And a year later, I got certified, and I've been doing it since 2016. And it's always something new. It's so cool. And I'm so excited to have a conversation like this today, because 10 years ago, if you said to me, oh yeah, you're going to be going on podcast talking about past lives and time travel and reincarnation and things like that, I'd be like, yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, yeah. Okay. But it happened.
Well, you know what's so funny? So as you were talking, and you're talking about your story and how you had this type of thinking, but you went through this health crisis, same years. So I'll explain after. Same years. And then you came to this huge realization, changed your life. That was exactly my story.
Oh
Same
yeah.
exact, yes. So for me, I grew up in like Catholic school. Always had that like I'm a very, or I used to be a very black and white thinker, right? Black and
Mhm.
white, right or wrong, like nothing in the middle. And then I also went through my own health crisis. Um, and it was in my 20s when I actually started to seek out help for that. And that's when I found Reiki and that whole spiritual side that I started tapping into. And just like you, it was one of those things where it's like, okay, what's the worst that can happen? Right? It's holistic, like trying to find other methods other than just what we typically do here in Western society. And yeah, it changed my life, just like you said. And it actually, instead of just that black and white, it's like now I see all the shades of gray in between.
Mhm.
Yeah, as soon as you were talking, I was like, I feel that like same pattern, that same relationship that you experienced. So I thought that was really cool.
I mean, I'll toast to that. I don't have
Yeah.
any wine near me or shot glass or anything, but fun. You know, we had a little rough go in our 20s, but
Yeah. Now,
it's
for
what you
anyone,
make of it.
yeah, exactly, it's what you make of it. And sometimes it's like you see it more when you're out of it than when you're in it. Because when you're in it, it's like you feel like you're in a hole. You don't really notice any progress, because you're stuck. But then when you take the steps to actually take action and move past things and heal, and you look back, you're like, oh my gosh, what did I accomplish? Look where I am.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Can I say one more thing about that?
Yeah.
So I know in this space, in the spiritual space, a lot of times it's kind of put out there that, oh, you created this. Oh, it's all in your mind. Oh, all you need to do is just say, manifest health, and it happens. Maybe, like, maybe. I don't know. That hasn't always been my experience with it. Like I said, even in sessions, I've seen things happen,
Mhm.
but I don't think that it comes on a silver platter. So if you're not at that point yet and you're listening to this, your experience is real. I'm 99% sure, because again, I don't like to speak in absolutes, but I'm 99% confident that your experience is real. And just if you're not at that place where Stephanie and I are at yet, then your experience is still real. I don't want you to kick yourself if you're not there yet, because I know that some people in this space may be telling you that all you need to do is think more positive and then everything's going to be better. Like my shift in perspective did not take away what I was feeling.
Mhm.
It was still there. It was just looking at it different.
Mhm. Yeah, giving yourself grace. For me, it was like patience. Like it wasn't
Mhm.
like okay, I got one Reiki session and I changed my perspective in one day and life was perfect. Like, no.
Yeah.
I'm still working on it. It's been years
Hmm.
and we all have our own journey. We all have our own lessons and it takes time. So, yeah, I love how you put that to everyone listening. Like, just acknowledge where you are and don't think you're doing it wrong or you're not doing it well enough or it's not the right thing for you based on everyone else's journey. So thanks for sharing that. I love that.
No, my pleasure.
So for anyone who does not know what a past life regression is, let's
Mhm.
talk about it.
Okay. This is the fun part. Or wait, we're getting to the fun part.
The whole part was fun since you started in
Yeah.
the beginning.
Okay.
Me
I'll
out.
take that.
Okay.
And then I was thinking, do I freeze again just for the fun of it? I'm like, no, let's not interrupt the
I
flow.
think I would have caught on.
So, a past life regression, simply put, is using hypnosis to travel back into the subconscious or superconscious to revisit past lives or other lives. And it's these other experiences that you have that reside inside of you and places that you've been. And yeah, we do it through hypnosis. It's just through your mind. In the process itself, here's the cool part about it. There is nothing externally involved, no psychedelics, nothing like that. It's just a matter of slowing your thoughts down and getting all the garbage from the day out of the way.
Mm.
So if you're not thinking about having to do the laundry or paying your bills or anything like that time will come later in the day. But we just need to get that out of your mind, and that allows you to have access to all of that.
How does your session with people work? Like, what would it look like if someone came to you their first time and they're like, listen, I want to book a session?
Mhm.
What would it look like?
So, very first thing I do is send you a pre-session questionnaire, and those are questions that you will have for your higher self or subconscious, superconscious, whatever terminology in that sphere is most comfortable for you. And it's anything and everything that you can ask. So, it's why do I feel like I had this dream that's reoccurring from the 1850s? Why do I have this relationship with this person? Why is my favorite color blue? Why did my teacher treat me like garbage in the third grade? What are my career perspectives? So on and so forth. Because that also comes later in the session. Sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit right now.
It's okay.
But it's the life library. That's what I call it. It's the library of you, and you have access to all of that. So it's any question you want to ask, go ahead and write it on the questionnaire. So then you'll go ahead and send that to me. And when we first meet, we'll have our pre-session. And that consists of getting to know you and who you are in this life. So we go through the story of your life from birth until today, because I need to understand the patterns of this life. That way, when they pop up in the past life, we know to explore them.
Mm.
The end of the pre-session, we'll go over your pre-session questionnaire. Then we go to the regression, which is where you experience most of the time past lives. Sometimes it's something else entirely, and sometimes it's just moments from this life, because sometimes seeing past lives wouldn't be beneficial
Mm-hmm.
because there's something you need to see in this life, something that needs to be looked at in this life, and it would just be a hindrance if you didn't look at it. And at no point am I dictating anything that you see. All of that is coming from you. Now, the question really ultimately becomes, what's the difference between the subconscious and the superconscious at that point? Now, my feeling is yes, there is a difference. The superconscious, I think, is something that resides outside of you. It's maybe all that is. But terminology gets wonky. But I think all that matters is the outcome,
Mm.
is that the information is coming through. And if it feels right to you, then what do you do with that information? So then after we go through regression, we then go ahead and make contact with your higher self or subconscious. And again, all this is coming through you. So all the questions we ask are coming right from you. I'll ask the question, but it's coming straight from your mouth, because at that point, it's almost as if we're unlocking access to a part of your brain, or that part that resides outside of you that you don't have access to in your normal waking state. So you're able to receive that information more seamlessly. Then I bring you back and we talk about it. And the beauty of this, ultimately, at the end of the day, is you are in control. You are your own authority. You have the choice what you want to do with the information. At no point do I ever tell you, this is what you need to do. I may have a suggestion, but you can take it or leave it. And it's about what you decide to do once you walk through your door the next day.
Mm. What is the biggest lesson you find that people typically learn when they uncover all of this information?
I don't know about lesson necessarily as much
Mhm.
as it looks like there's a bit of relief after everyone goes through the process, because I think that there's a realization that there's more.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of that feeling that I had that very first session, where it made me want to make more out of my life. Ironically, 'cause still, you think it'd be the other way around, that if it's one life, one chance, that you're going to make the most out of it. But I think that there's this feeling of, okay, I want to get it right, but if I don't, it's okay. It's all a lesson.
Hmm.
This is all an experience, and we're on this merry-go-round, learning every step along the way.
So interesting. So when you're in a session, do you feel like, and I know every session is different, um, but do you find that there's typically one past life that might come up, or could there be several in one session, or how does that work?
Typically, it's more than one, but if it's more than one, there's a theme.
Hmm.
And it's crazy how these things make sense. Some things just seem so seemingly unrelated. But then when we get to that higher self portion at the end, and I say, why was Stephanie showing these lives? And we'll go one by one. There's a theme there, and it all makes sense. So if one life is necessary to get the point across, then it's just going to be one life that's shown. Because I'm generally not saying, okay, let's move to another life. I just say, okay, let's move forward. And then you know where to take yourself. So at that point, if we go to another life, it's because you, or when I say you, I mean that part of you that's outside of you, but it is still you. That's really who's running the show. And I generally see more than one life these days.
So interesting. Yeah, it reminds me of, so I don't do past life regressions, but I do Akashic records readings.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, and it's very, I wouldn't say it's similar, but the information that we're kind of accessing is very similar. So
Mhm.
it's interesting when you talk about the past lives potentially repeating the theme.
Mhm.
And I feel like it's the same because often, like, right, we go through our this lifetime to learn a lesson or learn several lessons. But yeah, if those lessons aren't learned and that cycle, that pattern isn't closed, it's not learned, it's not healed, like it'll just keep repeating. And it's funny because I had a session recently and I didn't know this person, and I was the one accessing the records for them. So it was all via distance. And so, of course, I'm doing a voice recording because that's just easier because there's so much information that flows. And not until this person got the reading did they say, oh my gosh, everything that you talked about in this past life that had popped up was showing up in this person's current life with other people, but it was the same exact, almost to the T, same exact theme, same exact lesson. And it was just like mind blowing because, of course, for me, I didn't know what it was. But when they told me, like, listen, this is what happened and laid it all out, I was like, wow, it's like that happened in that lifetime and it's continuing in this one in a different way to give yourself the perspective, the opposite perspective. Because in one lifetime, this person did something specific, and in the next, in this lifetime, she was on the opposite end of that lesson. So it was like so fascinating. So I wasn't sure
Were
if
you
you,
really that surprised though?
yes, because when things happen, like obviously, like we talked about this, like we get insights, right? Like I get insights. Um, but they always surprise me. Like never am I like, oh, this is not surprising. I'm always like, oh, this is so amazing. Like it's always so exciting for me because um yeah, it's just amazing how like spirit works, this whole spiritual side works, and how when you're open and you're getting these insights, you get so much knowledge. But yeah, I'm always surprised.
Do you mind if I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
You said that she was on the other side of it.
Hmm.
So when you say that, do you mean like I'm going to go for the extreme example right now because
Yes.
I don't know if you can talk about it or not, but it's like where someone will say, if I was killed in a life, does that mean that the person who killed me, I will then kill them? Being on the other side, is that kind of what you were saying with being on the other side of it?
Yes, but not, well, yes, but
Maybe
kind
not
of.
that
It was,
extreme.
yes, not that extreme. And the person in the relationship in this life wasn't in the relationship in a past life. But the theme of what happened to this person was the same exact theme of what's happening to her now with someone else.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, as again, I don't share too much, but as the
Yeah.
details came through, I was just like, Wow, it was just amazing, and it brought so much healing because it's like it kinda gives you a little bit, of an understanding
Hmm.
as to why maybe tough things are happening, or yeah, it just kind of brings things full circle, and I think that's when a lot of healing happens, and just like you said, when people come out of your session with you and they're just feeling this sense of relief, like, it's true, it really does bring a sense of relief and
Hmm.
amazement and healing and all that stuff. Um, what
Well,
was your biggest lesson when you or what was your biggest realization when you did your first past life regression for yourself or a future one? Like, what was the most impactful one?
you mind if I comment on something else you said
Yeah.
before and then?
Uh-huh.
So, if that situation popped up in a past life regression with a reoccurring pattern or theme,
Mhm.
what I was saying before, it's all about what you decide to do with the information. So, if that's presented, it's like, okay, this has happened before. Odds are it will probably happen again if a change is not made. So, sure, you can sit back and do nothing, or are you going to take action and make
Mhm.
a change? And that's where I think karma comes into play a lot of the time, is it's not still like, you, again, I don't know why I go for these extreme examples. Like, you punched me in a past life in the face. Now I'm going to punch you to return the karma. In that situation, I think it may be you punched me in a past life. You came and tried to punch me in this life, and I let you. I saw it coming, but I let you. And then the future life, same thing. I saw it coming, but I let you do it again. At what point are you going to duck out of the way and say,
Mm.
no more? So I don't think it necessarily has to be that back, like you just keep trading jabs. I mean, sure, that could happen, but I don't know if those roles always change in that sense of just back and forth, as much as break the pattern, break the pattern, break the pattern. You keep doing this thing, break the pattern. This person keeps taking advantage of you. Don't let them take advantage of you anymore.
Exactly. Yeah, it's taking that effort to change because otherwise, like you said, it's just pattern keeps going, it keeps rolling, and that's why it continues to show up each and every
Mm-hmm.
time until maybe this time, like you said, you do something different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But here's the best part. If you don't, that's fine. That's
Mhm.
on you. Kick the can down the road. I don't know why you want to, but you can.
Mhm.
I think that's the beauty of it, though. We have a
So,
choice in the matter.
yeah, how do you know, or how would people listening know if a past life is really, really impacting their present life?
Okay, I can swing this around to the last question you asked also.
Yeah, because I already forgot the last question I asked you.
I think it was about what was most impactful for me.
Yes.
I wouldn't necessarily say my first, as much as a recurring theme was about power
Hmm.
and being in a position of authority and also being a teacher and not being responsible with all the above. So I'm not living the same vocations or lives as I may have been in those other lives, but I am in a position of power, believe it or not, because, excuse me, as a spiritual practitioner, look, I'm just a dude. That's it. I do past life regressions. I'm not Gandhi or Buddha or anything. I'm not, maybe not Gandhi necessarily, but I'm not Buddha. I'm not a mover or shaker. I'm just a guy who has these experiences with people and sees patterns in those experiences. But I'm a flawed human being. Don't take my word for anything I say when it comes to beliefs, because beliefs are just that, they're beliefs. But because I am a past life regressionist and I have experience in the field, if I say something, someone listens because, oh, he's been doing this for a while. He must know more than I do. Well, I may have more experience, but I may not know. It may just be a belief. So having that power in those other lives and how I didn't handle that power responsibly has equated to me being or vigilant about talking responsibly about these matters. And that's why earlier I said I don't like to speak in absolute statements, because there's a difference between believing and knowing. knowing is a fact, while a belief is not necessarily something you can prove. So when I talk about these concepts, I need to be responsible because I am in a position of power. So what I could have done after those regressions is just say, oh, I was in charge of a lot of people. I was really cool. Look at how cool I was. I was amazing. That's the takeaway. I can be that amazing. Well, sure, I can take that away. But what was the real lesson at play there? I think it was about the power and doing better. So that's why I want to hold myself to the standard where I'm always doing the best that I can do, to be very clear, because I am dealing in a realm where we're talking about belief systems. And belief systems mean a lot to a lot of people, and it really dictates the way that they look at the world and run their lives. So I want to make sure that I'm being responsible when it comes to anything that I put out there. So it's about the application.
Mm. Yeah. So it's interesting that, and what I love about it is that it seems like you really, right, you dove into your own journey, your past life journey. You saw the lesson. And again, just like you mentioned before, you're taking action
Mhm.
to put that forward and to help people moving forward, and always keep yourself in that light and in that power so you can continue to make strides and improve that future, improve your future, improve your client's future. And I think more people need to be like you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But look, here's the other side of it. That doesn't mean that I don't still struggle with vanity. Because, of course, in those lives, I also loved the admiration.
Mm.
People adored me. And that's something I struggle with now, is towing the line between seeking admiration and just doing something because it's the right thing to do. And I don't think it's necessarily wrong to seek admiration or validation, but I think if it's your sole motivation, that may not be the right thing. So it's just being aware of that. And it's, am I doing this for the right reason?
And
And
and we're human too. So it's
exactly.
yeah,
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 I'm
yeah.
a flawed human being. I'd
Yeah.
like to think that I'm heading in the right direction. I mean, of course, if I look a year ago or a year before that, yes, I'm making slow progress, but that's what it is. It's about the journey. And look, here's the other thing. I could be wrong about all of this. I could be going about this the entirely wrong way. The lesson could have been, no, you need to be more arrogant than you were before.
And you won't know until your next life. So
Yes, exactly. So then I'll be on the other side, like, God, I got that one wrong. like,
yeah.
look at me and morals. What's this thing about responsibility? I should have thrown that out the window.
Yeah.
But I think that that's still the beauty of it, is that if we get it wrong, I believe that we have a chance to try it again and
Hmm.
hopefully get it right.
Yeah.
So just do the best that you can do.
Yeah. And let's talk about time travel.
Awesome.
Okay. What is it and what do we need to know about it?
I don't know what it is. I think that we view time through a linear lens, that being a straight line, such as I was born in the mid 80s. And if we look on a straight line, we go backwards. It appears to be backwards to me. I see that time as a memory. A year ago looks like it was backwards, but I don't think that time is linear. I still don't entirely know what that means, but I think
Hmm.
that time is more complex than that. And I also think that time is a creation of humans.
Hmm.
It's just a way that we keep order. But because of this collective agreement that we've made, it's a thing. Now, the question also becomes, well, does the sun still rise and set even if we didn't or collectively agree to time? I think the answer is yes, but it was just measured. Now, with time travel, I don't know if time travel can work like it did in Back to the Future or in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, or if time travel just looks a little different, such as past life regression. And then the question becomes, if time travel is happening during past life regression, are we confined to one dimension. Again, I don't entirely know what that means, because if we change the past in one way or another, or get you to break a habit or release something in a past life, there's probably going to be a ripple effect.
Mm-hmm.
And that ripple effect could change things in the present. Now, I haven't seen any massive changes after I've done a session with anyone, such as someone's president in the morning, and
Yeah.
then that afternoon there's someone new, or the sky is then black outside, and it's the middle of the day. So is something happening in a space that we can't comprehend? Our time, I don't like to use the word timelines,
Mm-hmm.
because I personally feel that it really leads to escapism. And it's, oh, if I can just jump this timeline, everything's going to be great. So does time overlap? Or are there little lines that go out from a circle where different decisions are made? And when we go back in time in a past life regression, are we changing something in a different place than the one that we're aware of? And are those connected? And if so, are they having an effect on each other? I think the answer is yes. But what do I think is most important about time travel? As someone who is obsessed with it, I think it's important to just be in this time and be in this
Mm-hmm.
life, because, the more I've been in, or the longer I've been in this space, again, I brought up that thing about timelines before. I see this hyper focus and fixation on jumping timelines and escaping from where you are now. And I don't think you're working on anything. I think it's all about the here and now. And I know I'm like a giant hypocrite, because my work is all about the past, but it's about the past having an effect on our present. And how do you enhance the present? By learning from your past. So
Yeah,
if you're
it's
going to,
like when we make mistakes, right? Like in the moment, I mean, sometimes we might know we're making a mistake when we're actually in the moment, but most of the time it's like not until we've already made the mistake and we can look back to the past do we realize like, oh, all right, maybe shoulda, coulda done it somehow a little bit differently.
but we're human.
Yeah.
So I just think it's important to be here and just be the best person that you can be. Now, if you want to have some fun by exploring those things, I don't think that there's anything wrong with it if it opens up your mind and it allows you to see possibilities that you may not have seen before. But at the end of the day, I'd say, what is the motive for looking at these things? And if it's about enhancing the here and now without skipping too many steps, then go for it.
That was perfect. I loved how you said that about enhancing it without skipping too many steps. Because I think you're right. Even me, like there have been times where I just want like to jump, skip ahead. But yeah, it's the beauties in the journey and the messy stuff in between.
Right?
Now, when we're talking about karma,
Mm.
what is it? And what is one thing we might be able to do now in the present, since we've been talking about the present? What is something we can do now to positively affect our future?
I don't know what it is. This is still what comes down to belief and knowing. I don't know. All I can do is give you an example that I believe applies to me, because I am the center of my own universe. I am the best thing since sliced bread. Is that not landing? Did that joke not land? Did I just come off like a giant jerk? Does
No,
everyone
no,
think
I
I'm just
find
full of
it
myself?
fascinating because
Okay.
I was never that confident to be like, I'm this. So I'm
Well,
just
it's a
like in
false
awe
sense of
listening.
bravado. But to me, the karma of what I brought up before with those other lives of being in those positions of power is playing itself out right now. The karma of I could have done better. And being given this opportunity to do better. However, things take me a little bit longer, because I think in a lot of those lives, power was handed to me from an early age, or just because of the way that I was born. It wasn't something I necessarily earned. So I think that I'm going to bring a little astrology in right now, but I'm going to break it down.
Yeah, break it down.
So Saturn is known as the planet that is really the authority figure. And wherever Saturn is in your chart, it doesn't let you skip any steps. It's going to make sure that you do everything right. And once you do, that's when you're going to be rewarded. So for me, I have Saturn conjunct my midheaven on the cusp of my 10th house. And what that means is the 10th house is really about your career. And midheaven is your public image. It's the way that the world sees you. So with Saturn there, it's a strong indication that I'm not going to be rewarded until I do everything right. And I cannot skip any steps. So I've had this thing that I like to call my Icarus factor, where I can go for something and get it. But if I'm not ready for it, it's like my wings are going to get clipped. So it doesn't matter if I'm able to get to the top of the mountain. There's that gust of wind that is just waiting to blow me off the top.
And you
Because,
found that play out already in
oh,
your
many
life?
times,
Hmm.
many times. And I'll give you just a good example being in this space. I I've been very aware of this just for my entire life. Of course, that doesn't mean I don't go for it. Now, I didn't learn astrology until early 2017, so that's when it was more tangible to me at that point. But as I said earlier, I started as a past life regressionist in 2016, and I wanted to make sure that I had a few years experience underneath my belt before I did any interviews or anything like that, because I thought it was important to know what the hell I was talking about,
Yeah.
to be able to draw upon experience and not act as if I knew, not a fake it till you make it. It's just like, oh no, I've been doing this for a couple of years. I know what I know. I know what I don't know. But any question that I'm asked, I can draw upon that experience that I've had over time. But of course, I shot high once I
Hmm.
decided it was time to do that. And that happened around the time of COVID. And I had reached out to someone who I had seen doing an interview on a major network show, and they were talking about what they were doing with COVID. I'm sorry, during COVID, and they were why am I having trouble this morning?
Experiencing?
Ex- that's what I was trying to say, but it was experimenting with
Oh,
spirituality. Like they
experimenting.
were right, but I'm like, no, it's not experiencing. I think, what's that what I'm looking for?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it
get
was that one.
it.
And I had this light bulb, like, oh, well, I'll reach out to that person. I mean, I didn't even have an Instagram yet for my business, but I remembered that person talking about it. Then I started an Instagram a couple months later, and I reached out to that person, and I heard back from them. And I was going to come on the podcast. In leading up to it, I listened to another episode of their podcast where they were talking about the experience they were having. I realized, oh, I'm screwed. This they jumped the gun on this one, because I'm like, it doesn't matter what happens. It's just they're going to demolish because like that's their thing, that they go after stuff like this
Ah,
for the gimmick. And
got
I'm
it.
like, oh no. 10 minutes before the session, they backed out. And they were very gracious about it. I'm so sorry. I just realized that I wasn't ready. And I'm thinking, okay, well, listening to the other episode, it's very apparent that that was the case. But thank God you realized it and didn't drag me through the mud.
Yeah.
But what that experience taught me was, one, I dodged a bullet, and I needed to go slower, because still at this point I was aware of the astrology. And I said, okay, too high, too quick. Again, the Icarus, where had that interview gone well, it could have catapulted me in one way or another. But I wasn't ready for it as someone,
Mm.
even though I'd been a past life regressionist for 4 years, you still have to learn how to be interviewed. And at that point, I said to myself, okay, I'm going to go on the smallest podcasts out there, the ones that are just starting, or the ones that don't have a big audience, and I'm going to learn what it's like to be interviewed. And so then when I reach those bigger interviews, I'm going to have so much experience to draw from that I'm going to be able to be like, yeah, I got this and not be
Mm.
worried or nervous, but I can't skip any steps. And that's the way I went about it. And things picked up quicker than I could have imagined at that point because I think I listened to, we'll say, just the cosmos.
Mm-hmm.
And still relating that to the karmic component, I think that that's where the karma factors in with the Icarus, where even though we may call it Saturn, Saturn is also known as the Lord of Karma. So it's not like these horrible things are happening to me, but it's just like you didn't do well when you weren't ready. In those other lives, you weren't ready for the power you were given or the responsibility that you were given. We need to make sure that you're ready now. And I think that's how karma plays itself out. So it's not a bad thing because someone may view the karma of that situation being me going on that show and getting dragged through the mud. What I see it as, it's about not being ready, and karma is working to my benefit this time around, even
Mm-hmm.
though it's a perceived setback, but
Mm-hmm.
it's really working in my favor.
Yeah, I think too, like behind the scenes, things are happening that we don't even know. So
Mhm.
when things are going down the drain and things aren't working out, like in all of my years of experience, there is a reason for it. And again, often you might not be aware of it. You might not be allowed to see it in this moment, or you might not even be able to like really dig deep and see it in the future. But most of the time, people become aware of like, yeah, I had to go through that because it gave me this.
Yeah, but it still sucks
It
though.
still sucks. Yeah.
That's a,
Yeah.
yeah, anyone listening, don't put rose colored glasses on these
Yeah.
situations. It's okay to acknowledge that it sucks. I'm still not where I want to be. It
Well,
still irks me every day that I'm not further than where I am because I'm like, I can do this.
right. And
But
that's
maybe
what
I can't.
what it is too. It's like healing is not easy. Like
Mhm.
the people who actually take the steps to try to heal themselves and heal their family, heal their future, like those are the people that are doing really hard work because it's not easy.
Mhm.
Right? A lot of stuff is uncovered that is difficult. And there are so many people who make the choice to not proceed for whatever reason, whatever, whatever that is for them. But I always say the people who are taking the steps to change their lives and to better themselves and to try harder and to do all of these different things, like those are the people that are healing. Whether they're coming up with amazing circumstances or not, you're still healing. But yeah,
Mhm.
healing is not always like roses and rainbows and happy times. Like healing, healing is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sucks.
But
Yeah.
sometimes it's good.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, the outcome.
The outcome can be good. All
Yeah.
right. So we're going to dive into our spirit segment. So I
Awesome.
want to know, what is one thing you always include in your daily routine that keeps you spiritually grounded and balanced that might help others do the same?
Being vulgar, frozen yogurt, um, reality checks that I'm not as amazing as I like to think that I
So you're
am.
not, what'd you say, the
Best
sliced
things in
bread,
sliced
something
bread.
sliced bread. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that just came naturally to me because it's something I try to tell myself all the time. That
So
it's
humor. Yeah.
basically, yeah,
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
and to not lose sight of the world. I would consider myself to be somewhat of a political junkie.
Mm.
How I know it's all a charade. I know that. Well, I believe that. I don't know it, but it sure seems to be that way. And I see a lot of people in this space saying, "Oh, it's only going to drag you down if you're involved in that too much." But I disagree with that. I think you can indulge in it, but not be as affected by it. And I like to know what's going on because then I also understand the world in a different
Mm.
way. And I understand people in a different way because I can then engage with people because I'm still a part of the world. As much as I may not want to completely be a part of it, sometimes the reality of the situation is I am a part of this world.
Mm.
And I think it's important to have your finger on the pulse, even if it's all a lie. At least you understand what people are thinking and why they're thinking it, and you can engage with them. Because I think if I'm too far outside of that, then I'm too far gone.
Hmm.
And I may not like the way things are, but it still solidly keeps my feet planted on the ground because I'm here for a reason. And frozen yogurt, I bring that up because, yes, it's one of my guilty pleasures. It keeps me grounded. If I'm having a rough day, well, some frozen yogurt will sweeten it up.
Yeah.
Is it a vice? Yes. But I
A
could
little
do
treat.
much worse.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
just frozen yogurt.
Oh, I
So,
do worse. I do worse. I have such a sweet tooth. I'm like cupcake,
right.
coffee, cream and sugar, you know.
And I mean, I think that is a part of spirituality in a sense because it's part of the human experience.
Hmm.
And I mean, so like I bring those things up, even though they seem so simplistic, but I've been in the space enough to know that some of the messaging is like, oh no, you're not going to ascend because you're consuming dairy or you're watching TV. So you're not going to ascend. It's like, well,
Yeah.
one, I'm not looking to ascend because I'm here, but I'm here. That's it.
Hmm.
So
Right.
I don't want to live in a state of fear.
Yeah. Yeah. Fear is one of those. Oh, fear is like we do like a whole episode on fear. But yeah, like
Mhm.
staying with those little, like small little gifts to yourself, like something that literally just makes you happy just because. Like
Mhm.
it's totally fine
Right.
to do that. Have your coffee, have your frozen yogurt.
Mhm. But look, spade a spade. I could be going about it all wrong. It could be entirely the wrong thing for me to do. I could be delaying my progress by lifetimes every time I indulge in that amazing frozen milk that's flavored. I could be.
You don't
So
know.
again, everyone take what I'm saying for a grain of salt. Take it or leave it. If it doesn't feel right to you, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I'm just a dude who has his outlooks, beliefs, and opinions. That's it. That's it. That's all.
You are hysterical. So funny. What is your favorite story regarding your connection to spirit?
When you say spirit, what do you mean?
I'm gonna throw it back to you. So, whatever it could be within your past life regression, for me, when I think of spirit, for my own personal things, I think of departed loved ones, um, angel signs, synchronicities, special coincidences that, really had some layers underneath that they weren't just meant to be. Um, Something that maybe you always go back to. Like for example, I think I wrote this in a blog. I might have said it in like one of my first podcasts, but like I always think about this. Actually, I don't think I mentioned this one, so I'll mention a different one.
Ooh,
Okay, when I was pregnant, so I was always very much like anxious, worried, right? Want everything to be perfect, try to do everything perfect, and still like, oh gosh, like I don't know. You don't know, right? So I remember I was driving to work, and at this point, I had just finished I did my Karuna Reiki certification. So I had already been in like the spiritual scene for about 4 years at this point. Um, but I remember I was driving to work because that's when I got a lot of my downloads. And I remember I was like stressing about something because I had ended up with gestational diabetes. Like during my,
that
yeah,
sucks.
it
That's the
really
time when you
sucked.
should be indulging everything.
I had a list of
Oh, I'm sorry.
foods that
I'm
I
so
would
sorry.
buy as soon as the baby was out because I am such a foodie and like sweets are my thing. So yeah, it was torture.
Oh, Stephanie, I'm so that's so
It was,
awful.
I remember my shower cake, I couldn't even eat it. I froze it. Of course, whatever. But I remember I was driving to work and all of a sudden it was just, I got this overwhelming feeling. Like I couldn't even describe what it was, but this overwhelming feeling. Like the sun came out and I just knew that everything was going to be okay. I don't know how. I felt like there was this open communication between me and my spirit team and my angels, and they were just like, calm down. Everything's going to be fine. And from that point on, it was like, I remember that changed my perspective on a lot. And it really just like grounded me. And it really just helped me like get out of my head and get out of like that whole fear-based thinking, because I just knew it was just this connection to spirit that in that moment was just like, this did not come from me. Like it wasn't from me. It was from my angels, from my guides, from some of my ancestors. And it was just like this incredible otherworldly type of feeling, that I actually don't even think I shared before. So you might be the first one to hear it, because I
I
usually
appreciate
keep
it.
keep stuff private here. But yeah, anyway. So, but whatever spirit means to you, basically.
So for me, I mean, favorite goes kind of dark.
Hmm.
It was favorite, right? Favorite
Favorite.
moment?
Or if you don't want to go dark, you can.
Oh no, I'm saying my
uh,
favorite would go dark. That's what it
okay,
was, the favorite,
do what
right?
you
That was
want.
the question.
Yeah, sure.
So around the time when I first had my health issues, like things were pretty dark for me. Of course, having doctors tell you you're fine, but you know something's wrong, that's going to do it too. And feeling like you're behind the rest of the world. Again, that bastard Saturn. But teaching me the hard lessons, didn't know at the time. I wanted out. And I actually talk about this in an episode on my podcast called Timeless Spirituality. Go check it out, everyone. The episode is called The Mirror of Time 5 Vagabond. And I alluded to, I didn't fully say it in the episode, but in the moment when I wanted to leave, I feel that there was something that came and told me, you can't leave.
I just got chills. Yeah.
And at the time, I would say that I was atheist bordering on agnostic. So, like a maybe could be, but no, the world sucks. There's nothing. And having that feeling and not understanding it, I won't put a label on it, even to
Mm-hmm.
this day. I could be like, oh yeah, angels, guides,
Mm-hmm.
God, Jesus. I don't think it matters though,
Mm-hmm.
because just the feeling I got that day was enough. And even if it was nothing,
Mm-hmm.
it was just the wind, seemingly random out of nowhere, that's fine. It kept me there. But I
Yeah.
do believe that it was something else. And I think feeling that instilled the sense of belief in myself in a time when I didn't have much. And I'm glad that I had that experience, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe it was something else.
Yeah. Oh,
So
it's
sure,
a,
we'll call it spirit. Yeah.
I like it. I like it. Yeah. And just same thing again when you were talking, I was like, oh, same feeling. Like it's just when you were talking about this feeling that you can't even really describe, but
Mhm.
it like shifts, it shifts something in you.
Yeah, you talked about it
Yeah.
with your when you were driving,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It was like
With
that.
the person tailing you or something, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing. So this is like the second time you've brought something up where I'm like, ah, same. I have the same thing. And what is
By the way,
one?
that was seemingly I didn't do that just be like, "Oh, because I know that Stephanie will say this."
No.
It's just like, "Nope, I can't really think of anything else." It was a good episode. I listened to that one.
Oh,
The one where you
thanks.
talked about, yeah, the person behind you. And you mind if
Yeah.
I inquire about something there?
Yes, please do.
It may take us on a little side
Okay, that's
conversation. Is that
fine.
okay?
Yeah.
In this is like one of those things where it toes the line
Mm,
from my own genuine curiosity as I try to understand the world around me more, and also getting to this point of letting go.
mm,
So I know I'm like doing this big preface first. So and in no way is this an indictment on anything that was said. It's a genuine inquiry because I
mm-hmm,
want to understand the distinction.
mm-hmm,
You mentioned in that episode that you knew. I believe you said it was an angel that you know
mm-hmm,
that we all have guardian angel. Like awesome, I'm on board with that.
mm-hmm.
But you're like, I knew that an angel saved me that day. How did you know?
I just knew. I just knew. There was, again, it's that like indescribable feeling where, and again, I can sense spirit. So I felt it. I felt it. I knew that there was no other way for me to get out of that. Knowing me, knowing my personality, knowing how at that moment in time, I wasn't a quick thinker. I couldn't think on the spot. I was one of those people who in moments of stress, like shut down, curl up. And it was just this push, this clarity, this like outside energy that just helped me like move forward and stay safe. It actually happened another time when I was driving to work too. And I remember, I don't know if I remembered if I talked about this because my memory is the worst. But same thing, like driving to work, the rain was so heavy, my wipers didn't, swoosh the rain in time and I couldn't see anything. Um, and it was almost like the wheel moved without me moving it. And I was so close to the guardrail, but I didn't hit it. Um, but yeah, I can't even, like I said, I can't describe it. Um, but I just knew. So I didn't
So,
really answer your question, but
no, it's okay because I want to inquire a little bit further if that's
yeah.
okay. Because everything you're saying, I'm on board with.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, you talk to spirits. I believe you. Like, I just do. And I firmly believe in God. And I'll even go as far to say I have faith that God exists and that God is watching out for all of us, even when we don't understand the way things are playing out.
Hmm.
I believe there is a God or there is a creator or so whatever terminology you want to use.
Hmm.
I believe that there is a higher power. I do not believe that the world is seemingly random. Sure, the Big Bang may have happened, but yeah, sure, we'll go with that. But I mean, it probably existed somewhere first, or something had to bang out the Big Bang. The distinction that I still don't understand, and this is like so one of those things that I'm working on because I wonder if I'm staying too lodged in place
Mm.
by by clinging on to the belief as opposed to the knowing. Because when I hear your story, again,
Hmm.
while I am completely on board with everything you're saying,
Hmm.
I believe everything you're saying.
Hmm.
I can't help but wonder, did a seemingly random universe conspire to somehow save you that day? Like, could it have
Hmm.
been an anomaly that happened with the steering wheel? Again, I just need to stress this with everyone. I am
Hmm.
not discounting this whatsoever.
Yeah.
So, for someone like you, who I do believe
Yeah.
has these senses and, can talk to spirits, can feel it, as opposed to someone who I think doesn't. Like,
Hmm.
I have a genuine curiosity to understand where that knowing comes from. And
Hmm.
if it isn't, and like it's okay. Because
Hmm.
if it can bring me one step closer to letting go of this rigidness that I have, please, Stephanie,
You
help
know what
me.
I got to do? I got to work on you. You need some Reiki, and then we'll talk after
That's
the
it.
fact.
That's all I need is Reiki. You can
No,
fix this with Reiki.
no, but if we did a session, so I can pinpoint, like, so I'm getting all these spiritual insights, right? When I'm doing, whether it's in person or distance, right? So as I'm doing a session, you don't have to be there, but I'm getting all of these downloads. I'm writing things down. And sometimes there's like amazing little tidbits that pop out. Could be something like until I'm actually, and I say on you, so I'm not really on you, but until I'm like on your energetic system, I feel like I might be able to like give you some insight because there could be some, I'm not saying it's a bad block, but there could be
No, no,
some
that's okay.
blocks that
Yeah.
might be hindering
Hmm.
or that might change your perspective. Like I've had so many, it's so funny because I've had so many people who, again, did not believe in spirit, did not believe in God, did not believe in anything, just like you said, that were like they claim to be atheists. And
Oh, by the way,
after
I'm not anymore.
right,
I'm
like you said,
far
you're not
from it. Yeah.
anymore. But I've seen what can happen when somehow, right, you become aware, just like when people work with you and they become aware of these past lives or aware of different things in their energy. And once you become aware, things start to shift. It's the same thing. So it could be that energetically, whether it's a past life, this life, there might be something blocking or
Mhm.
something resisting. Like I feel like there might be some resistance. I'm not saying I'm going to know exactly the reason for that resistance or if it is resistance. Until I'm on you, I'm not going to know. So we'll set that
Can
up.
I say something else that I'm
Yeah.
sure one of your listeners is probably thinking right now
Yeah.
is how does he do this kind of work if he's like this? And I'll tell you, I am a firm believer in the work that I do in past lives. And let's just, because, someone will say, I know a past life regression was real because I was able to verify the information that came out of it. Like an example I like to use is let's just say that you, Stephanie, went back to a life in 1905 and you found yourself on 1234 Believer Avenue in Lincoln, Nebraska. Have you ever been to Lincoln, Nebraska before?
Mm-mm.
Okay, good. So this will work then. You've never been to Lincoln, Nebraska. You've never seen a picture of Lincoln, Nebraska. You may not have even known that Lincoln, Nebraska existed, or you can't pinpoint it on a map. It's just, oh, So in the regression, you go back to this place, you see this house, you're able to identify everything about it, even down to the address. And then you go do the research after the fact and you find that exact house, the one you saw in your regression. Sure, it may look a little aged at this point. The bricks may look a little withered, but it's the house, it's the address, it is the place you saw, and it feels the same. Someone may say that is proof that past lives are real. I personally don't think that that is proof. All that I think that that proves is that there's something else, which is okay. Because what I'm really focused on during that session is one, there's a reason you went to that life. What were the circumstances of that person's life? What was the pattern that was coming out of that life, or what was going on in that home? And how is it playing out in this life? That's where my fixation goes to. I don't care if it's real or not, even if this thing is just a construct of the subconscious mind and it is helping you make something more tangible that was just a feeling before in a way that you can grasp it to make a change in your life. That's all that I care about at the end of the day. But again, I fully believe it's real, but I'm not going to die saying that it's real. If someone, I know that's not something I would die for, that idea, because I don't think it matters at the end of the day. So that's why, again, I'm a full
Mhm.
believer in your experience and what happened to you. And from my experience, saying, I believe that there was something with me there that day. I don't know what it was, but I don't think it matters because at the end of the day, I'm still here.
Mhm.
And to me, that's all that matters. But yeah, the enigma continues as I wonder how would my life look different if I was just like, oh yeah, Stephanie knows that it was
Right?
something
We
else
don't
that saved
know.
her. Oh, I know it was something else that saved me. Like, how would things be different for me? And that's
Something to uncover.
right. And here's the ultimate irony from this. Me inquiring about these things, my intention is not to divert anyone away from faith or believing in God or any of those things. If anything, it's to enhance it because I think it's so important to understand our thoughts and our terminology and the way that we operate in the world to allow room to have an even deeper connection. Because if you can pull out anything that isn't associated with it, then how much stronger is that connection going to be when it is completely genuine?
Hmm. Hmm.
So
I-
I, I'm not false light if that's what you're thinking. Then again, maybe I am, you know?
So funny. And I was just going to say, where can our listeners learn more about you?
So you can reach me on Instagram at the Past Life Regressionist. My website is thepastliferegressionist.com, and my podcast is called Timeless Spirituality. And at this point of the release, I believe I will have a show on Ethereal TV called The Past Life Regressionist. So
Oh my
hoping it will
goodness.
be out by the time of, because it's still going to be sort of 20. summer 2025, right?
Yes.
Fingers crossed that
Fingers
the show will
crossed.
be released by
Oh,
then.
oh my gosh, that's exciting.
Well, thank you.
Exciting, exciting, exciting. Awesome. Now, before we go, I pulled a card,
Okay.
and so I'm going to show you what it is.
Rigid.
And I'm going to show you, or not show you, but tell everyone else what it might mean for them. Okay, so you got the Nine of Wands. So it's
Ooh.
funny because so every deck is so different, but with this card, in terms of your career, right? Like I thought of each light as a past life. So you in your job helping other people like uncover and unveil each past life as each of these lights. And as you're helping them do that, right? You're like, they're getting this clarity. They're getting like all of this beautiful like information to help them like rise up and just feel clear. So I was like, that's interesting. But then when you started talking about your story and how you were in that, right, that like dark place, and you got, right, that like feeling again that you couldn't really understand, but it like shifted things. It was like that whole scenario, like coming from the dark, and you can see like the whole card is black, other than the little flashes of light. So yeah, that's what I thought when I pulled this. But then as you're speaking, I was like, oh, there's something else coming through.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. And for everyone else, it's about the message is you're in the home stretch, right? You're almost there. So make sure you take some time to rest if you're doing a project. Make sure you keep your hope up because you're almost at the finish line. So whatever goal you're trying to achieve or whatever you're working towards, like don't give up at this point, just keep going. So Daniel, thank you so much for the laughs and for the questions and for your amazing input.
Thank you for having me on. This was a lot of fun.
So
And
much
thank you for
fun.
letting me go to those places where, some people may be uncomfortable with me, but I was like, I don't know, she can handle it.
I can handle it.
She's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. Well, thank
Years,
you for
see,
that.
that's growth. Like years ago, I would have been like, oh my gosh, maybe it wasn't spirit. Maybe I was wrong, right? Like that, like back in the day, I would have totally been like, someone is asking me a question or they're like doubting me, then that means I should doubt myself. Like maybe my whole perspective was wrong. But no, right? Everyone has their own opinions. And over the years, it's like I did my healing, I did my growth, and I've gotten to a point where it's like everyone has questions.
Yeah.
Everyone, right, can think their own thing. It doesn't change my experience. It doesn't change my perspective. It doesn't change my knowing. Like again, like that knowing, I just know.
Hmm.
So yeah, I loved it.
Thank you so much for having me on.